Sometimes when you're saying like go to therapy, it's kind of like undermining God. You need to choose either or. So it's either you go to therapy or you choose to follow God's way. And the reality is when you are in therapy, those things matter. Who you are matters. The things that you value, those are the kind of things that do get incorporated into the therapeutic process. And we do hold that in mind when we work with you in terms of helping you deal with the problem. And we think about like working with people in terms of the biopsychosocial model. So the biological aspect would be the medication, psychological aspects is therapy. And then socially, like what social support do you have? Do you have social support in terms of church, your family? All those things are quite important. And we try to think of you holistically as a person. So it doesn't mean just because you're going to therapy, you then now need to go against your faith.
Hello guys, and welcome to Voice It with the Voice of Africa. Today we have a very special topic, which is depression, and a lot of special people as well. Would you guys mind introducing yourselves, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Bomikazi. I am in South Africa and I am a clinical psychologist currently completing my community service. And I'm very passionate about mental health, so I'm excited to be here and speak about that. And I also have a YouTube channel where I actually speak quite a lot about mental health, everyday experiences that people have and how we can go about understanding that. And the channel is called Clinical Psychology in Real Life. So please do have a look and hopefully you enjoy the channel.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Yaw Appiah. I'm actually from Ghana, but currently living in the US, California. I'm a music producer and a DJ. You can find me on YouTube and all the platforms, and you can find me also on Instagram at Yaw Appiah. So yeah, I'm really happy to be part of this, Voice It, and I'm looking forward to an amazing talk show.
Hi everyone, my name is Antoinette Atipo. I'm from Ghana as well, but I'm currently in the US in Maryland. I currently work as an environmental health and safety consultant, but I studied law for the most part of my life. I look forward to the conversation on depression, and I hope everyone is able to learn from it or share to other people.
For sure. So thank you guys. And the reason why I picked this topic is because I feel as though a lot of people, especially in the African, diaspora in Africa as well, don't necessarily touch on depression. A lot of people go through a lot of things and end up dying without talking about it. So I want to first touch on the importance of therapy, and if you guys can give your point of view, so if you think therapy is necessary or if it's not necessary.
I think therapy is necessary,
right.
But then I think we have to talk about what depression is.
Okay.
If Bomikazi can
you want to give us
since she's into the clinical, I think if we understand what depression is, then it would be better to just
go there.
What do you think, Bomikazi? What do you think depression might be like in Ghana?
So generally, like in terms of just understanding depression, I think it's quite common for us to speak about the fact that, no, I'm feeling depressed. And generally people are referring to feeling quite stressed or distressed, whereas depression is more of a clinical kind of presentation, and you need to have certain kind of symptoms that last for a certain amount of time. And most importantly, they need to significantly affect your functioning, and that's in terms of your occupational functioning, your social functioning, and other areas of your life for us to recognize it as being something that we can clinically diagnose as depression. So I think a lot of us generally like throwing that word around, and at times it makes it quite difficult for people to actually know when they're clinically depressed. So yeah, I think like that's the main thing that we need to kind of understand and distinguish between when you're feeling distressed versus when you have clinical presentations of depression. And distress is something that generally goes away once you've dealt with whatever problem it is that you're experiencing, whereas depression is actually something that's difficult for you to get out of. And sometimes there might not even be something in your life that's stressful, and yet you start developing symptoms of depression, which then eventually lead to a clinical diagnosis of depression. And that's when you'd need more professional interventions to try and help you in terms of dealing with that. And that includes both medication and, like we're speaking about now, actually going in for therapy.
Okay, that's so cool. That's good to know. What was the question again? If I can jump in.
Do you think therapy is important?
Yeah, I think therapy is important, and we basically emphasizing this in Ghana, where you know, a lot of people don't know what even therapy is. You know, I didn't know what therapy is until I moved out here, and you know, we go through a lot of things that we think, oh, God is going to do it. You're going to get through it. And whenever you mention therapy, everybody is looking at you like, what are you even talking about? That is in Ghana. Well, generally for now, I think therapy is very, very important when it comes to depression. It depends on what kind of the depression that you're going through. I've seen people that actually were so depressed that they committed suicide. You know, you read in the news and everything. So I really, really think therapy is a good thing for the society when it comes to depression.
So that's interesting. So if you're saying therapy is important, are we then saying God does not exist?
No, I don't think so. I think we have been given, you know, the mandate, like we've been given authority over a lot of things. I know we're not about to talk about, you know, the Christian aspect of depression, because, you know, for just a personal experience, when I was like really growing up, I was, you know, a little bit depressed over certain things that I did not get, especially when going to high school. You know, my friends had that and I didn't have this. And I'm like, why do they have this and I don't have these? And I have to constantly think about it, like, why are my parents not able to get me these? And it's not just for like a day, for an entire semester, just thinking and just wondering why it's then push you under certain pedigree, like you're depressed about certain things that you don't actually have, and which affects you mentally. I don't know if you guys agree to this, but yeah, I feel like God is there to help us overcome all that stuff, but therapy is important, you know, talking to a professional to let you know, hey, maybe you have to go to sleep like that. Maybe you need a second job, or maybe you need help from a family member. I just believe this therapy is really important compared to how God is helping us too, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And I think you actually raised quite an important point that sometimes when you're saying like go to therapy, it's kind of like undermining God. You need to choose either or. So it's either you go to therapy or you choose to follow God's way. And the reality is when you are in therapy, those things matter. Who you are matters. The things that you value, those are the kind of things that do get incorporated into the therapeutic process. And we do hold that in mind when we work with you in terms of helping you deal with the problem. And we think about like working with people in terms of the biopsychosocial model. So the biological aspect would be the medication, psychological aspects is therapy. And then socially, like what social support do you have? Do you have social support in terms of church, your family? All those things are quite important. And we try to think of you holistically as a person. So it doesn't mean just because you're going to therapy, you then now need to go against your faith.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's quite important for us to speak about. And it's things that people don't know about, like you're saying. And I think another kind of stereotype there is with regards to therapy is that, no, you need to have like serious problems and your life must be falling apart in order for you to go to therapy. There must be some horrific traumatic thing that goes on. But therapy is not just about working with people. Yes, that's important in terms of working with people who are struggling from that sense, but like everyday people who want to experience personal growth, who want to learn new ways of dealing with situations and coping with situations. If you want to understand more about yourself and how you react in certain kinds of relationships, why you do relationships the way you do. Those kind of things are things that we actually do in therapy, and we help people work through those. So everyone should actually be in therapy. Everyone would benefit from therapy. You don't need to wait until there's a problem for you to actually say, actually, I need to then see a therapist of some sort, be it like a counselor or a psychologist. So I think those are the kind of things that we need to start introducing to people, that actually, hey, maybe you should go to therapy. If something feels quite uncomfortable for you, you feel like you need something different in your life, or a sense of unease that you have, therapy can help you with that in terms of trying to understand those kind of things. As much as it helps with more severe mental health difficulties that significantly affect your functioning, but it can also help you in terms of just improving your life in general.
I feel like it is the way that it is, especially like in Africa or in Ghana where I'm from, because it's not the norm. I'm saying this because when you're sick, right, the first thing that comes to your mind is to go to the hospital. At the back of your mind is not a thing of, am I undermining God, or doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. It's a thing of, no, I need to sort this out, so I'm going to go to the hospital. That's where I can get to sort it out. It's the same thing for therapy, or what we need to realize about therapy. It's also a way of handling a mental situation. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're undermining God or God doesn't exist. Yes, you can pray, but you still need to seek the help that you need, at the time.
No, that makes sense. And like an interesting thing that Bomi and you talked about was that you should be in therapy regardless of if you're going through something, crazy or not. I've never thought of it that way. I've always thought of it as hey, like if my life is in shambles, that's when I might, go that type of way. But therapy is expensive too. You can't lie. Like people you can't be going to therapy just like because I'm not feeling well today. Is there any alternatives you guys can give as to getting free therapy or getting low cost therapy?
I would say that like we all like have friends around us. If you're going through something, I feel like the issue with mental issues or like mental health is that we feel like we're alone, right? Like, so maybe you don't want to disturb the other person, or I don't know, maybe you don't want to share what you're going through, but then we all have people that we can speak to, or we all should find people that we can speak to at the time. That's like free therapy, rather than having to go and pay, to, someone who just listen to you in the moment, someone who just give you like advice, someone who just encourage you. I feel like all of those things are important. And even bringing it to, like your faith or whatever, you can find someone in your church, your mosque, wherever, and speak to them. I feel like they are also like in a position to like direct you, or to like encourage you, or to like lead you. So in terms of like free therapy, I feel like those are some of the available options to us. Yeah.
So what do you say is fair enough? What do you say is fair enough if, let's say, for example, Yaw is going through a lot and he doesn't necessarily need lady friends, but he decides to go and find a girl or something, to like wipe up and then uses her as his free therapy? Would you say like it's fair enough to use people in that way, or it's like?
I wouldn't say like to use people. I think that's why I said like a friend, because then you've known the friend like, for a while, to be able to trust them, to open up to them. So it wouldn't just be a random person or someone that you just, I don't know. I guess everyone is different in what they want to do.
I think it should be close friends and family, because when people talking about their deeper issues and deeper problems, they cannot just describe that with just any person or just a friend. I think they have to trust the person to actually be open to that extent, to tell them what they're actually going through. So yeah, I totally agree with you. But at the end of the day, it's just like close friends are people that you actually trust. Yeah. Like me personally, like, I have to trust you to actually, tell you about what I'm going through at a certain, period of time. And because with depression and mental health, we Africans, we hold on into a lot of stuff thinking we can do this, we figure this thing out without sharing it with other people, to get that free therapy. Okay, hey, if you take this step, this is going to help you. That's not how a lot of us, we grew up. Like, you have to take care of business regardless of how much stress you're going through it. So yeah, free therapy is good, but it depends on how comfortable you feel, discussing those issues with that person.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, people actually find it easier to speak to strangers than people they know.
Yeah.
And that's mostly because there's no sense of responsibility towards that person, that now I need to think about how I've now burdened this person with this information. How are they going to look at me in the future? What are they going to think of me? What are they going to think about my situation? So a lot of people actually find it quite difficult. And sometimes some of the problems we have to do with the people around us. So if I tell Yahweh that I have a problem, and then can I trust him that he's actually not going to tell the person that's... So there's quite a lot of things that make people feel very cautious about actually opening up to people they know. And I think a lot of people usually think about a therapeutic space as going into like a professional kind of setting, and those kind of things that we've just spoke about, like people who are your social support are important people that can help you, because therapy gives you the space to express yourself. So being with people, with someone that can listen and empathize with you without being critical towards you, and understand your experience and make you feel like you're not alone in that experience, those are important people. So friends, family, spiritual leaders. I was actually talking to someone recently, and he was saying that every single Friday, he makes sure that he goes out to a pub and he goes to drink. And that's his way of thanking himself and his body for carrying him through the week. But most importantly, when he's in that space, he's able to interact with other people and share some of the difficulties that he's having. And he finds that very helpful, because people who are drunk are honest, they're open, they're a lot more kinder and more sensitive to experiences, and they're able to give you advice. And it gives you confidence. By the time you leave there, you feel like, actually, I have confidence to deal with whatever problem that I have. So a lot of people do different things to try and help them in terms of dealing with their psychological problems. And another form of dealing with some of the things is actually a diary. So writing how you feel down, because that gives you a space to actually let those things out, and also gives you kind of a process to actually make sense of your experiences. And the more you start writing, more thoughts start coming up, more feelings start coming up. And that's actually another form of an outlet that you can use. And then in terms of more professional kind of resources, there are different kinds of resources that are available. I mean, I know more about the South African context because that's where I work. So for example, state facilities do have a psychologist or a counselor that's available there. So if it's not available at your local clinic, you can go to your local clinic, and then they'll refer you to maybe like a district hospital that's there that does provide those kind of services. The unfortunate thing about that is that sometimes they are quite long waiting lists. But with that being said, that's also something that's an option for you. There's also NGOs. So for example, we co-founded an NGO called Mind Matters. And one of the things that we aim to do is actually making mental health resources and mental health services more accessible to people. So finding NGOs like that is also something that can be helpful. There are also online resources or online NGOs that provide services. So for example, in South Africa, there's SADC, which is the anxiety and depression group. So the South African Anxiety and Depression Group. There's Lifeline. So they provide more telephonic kind of counseling services. So if you just check on the internet in terms of services that are available, be it it's telephonic services, or virtual services, or actually NGOs that you can go into and gain access to those kind of services. And also in terms of clinical and counseling psychologists and other people in private practice, they do provide, and some of them work on a sliding scale. So depending on what you can afford and the salary that you earn, then they can try and adjust the rate that you pay for each individual session. So those kind of services are services that are available to people. And also in terms of, if I think about Zimbabwe, there's this concept called the friendship bench. So what happened is there's someone called Dixon Banda, and what he did was he trained elderly people, so grandmothers within the community, and helped them in terms of learning basic counseling skills and problem solving kind of skills using like cognitive behavioral therapy. And those old women actually are there for you and you have access to them. So you literally sit in a bench under a tree, and that's someone that you can talk to and someone that can help you think through things. So those kind of things and those kind of initiatives are there. It's just that people don't know about them. And sometimes it takes a little more effort just to go and try to find on the internet what's available in the community that you live in, or even asking people within the field. If you go to a doctor or you go to your clinic, find out, okay, so I'm having this problem. Is there a social worker? Is there a psychologist? Is there a counselor that I can talk to? Then they can point you in the right direction.
No, for sure. And thank you for touching on those different avenues that one can take as well. I don't know if you guys would mind sharing any of your, like, if you've ever been depressed, you mind sharing of any of your stories and how you were able to get out of that.
I think we're depressed every single day. Like, I mean, that is a deeper. I mean, I'm talking for the boys, but I'm talking for the, the boys out there. I feel me as a person, I feel if I'm not, doing what I need to be doing at this time in my life, having the house, having, the car, being able to take care of family, siblings, nephews, and it's much, it pushes you under setting, even the job that you do, you working for a company that you're not happy, but you have to still continue to work in order to do what? To be able to provide, to pay your bills and everything. It pushes you under a certain, because it's an everyday thinking. You cannot just quit a job and say like, oh, I'm going to get money from here. So it pushed a lot of us under that kind of depression, which I emphasize, like, not most of the depression that we Africans go through is like a mental health issue, or it's all much more of what I want to do, what I cannot do, what the means I cannot have. It all have mental, expression to us. So like with personal experiences, I feel like every single day, and I'm thinking ahead of the game, like literally like, what can I get done in the next year? And if the year is here and I'm not able to get that, or I'm not able to receive that, I'm going through a certain kind of depression. Like, damn, time is running really, 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 really fast. Mm-hmm. So jumping back to the question you asked, personal experience, just, I've been through a lot of things, that put me under that bracket. But at the end of the day, I have to be mentally strong, understanding I cannot let this, stop me. I got to keep going. I got to do what I got to do if I'm happy or I'm not happy. So I feel like it's just a mental thing for me as a person, understanding, yes, I'm depressed about setting this situation. If I don't have anybody to talk to, as we discussed, what do I need to do? And not all of us are able to go to a professional and be like, hey, I'm going through this. I want to talk to you about it. Nah, for me, I just keep going, and you can make it. You can do this, and I just keep pushing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I feel like that's something that most men, especially in Africa, kind of have. I've been through that, I'm going through that right now, some way. I feel like our problem is like we set unrealistic expectations. Like, let's say, I don't want to say unrealistic because like everything is possible, but at the same time, too, we kind of have to be, realistic of where we're in a certain time. So let's say, for example, you're a musician. Your goal is in the next year, I want to be on Billboard. That's very possible. But I feel as though that you shouldn't set your mind too much on that, on that goal, because once you don't attain that, everything crumbles down. That's something that I've realized for myself. When I'm starting something, I'll be like, okay, in this certain amount of time, I want to achieve this certain goal. And when that doesn't happen, I'm like, oh man, like everything started coming down, I'm mad, depressed, and all that. But I feel like once we kind of put some realism in our, in us being optimistic. It kind of helps out, as well too. So that's just something I want to put out there. I don't know if someone else was saying something.
So I just wanted to say that I feel like at each point in our lives, like we deal with like certain things, and like Yaw was saying that usually for us from like Africa, it's more of like, how can I provide for my family? Like what can I do to make like maybe, I don't know, my life easier right now to pay my bills. And so the reason why I was saying that was like, when you're fresh out of like college, the next thing is to find a job. Even before college, the next thing in your mind is to go to college. So then it's like at these different stages of your life, that I feel like the things that we need to do, or the things that we need to accomplish at the point in time, is what will like heavily weigh on us, And for me, I feel like I have tried. It's not really easy actually, in like having like downtime and stuff. Like the first thing that come to your mind is not always to like maybe journal or pick a phone and call someone. I feel like it's a bit difficult. So I've had to like make the mental effort to actually like write. If I decide to write it down, put it down in my journal, or like to speak to someone like my sister or like a friend. And I would say that it's very important to have like a very strong support system. On the days where like you're down, they would like lift you up, and on the days when they are down, like you lift them up. So like a two-way thing, not just a one-way thing. Yeah, that has been like the experience for me, because I think it was more so centered on like school at a point, getting into school at a point, and then finding a job after that. And then I don't know, like now it's a thing of, do I enjoy my job? That's a whole different topic that you have to like actually think about. And yeah, so I don't know, it becomes a lot sometimes. But then if you have like people around you to encourage you and to push you, I feel like we are a step in the right direction.
So do clinical psychologists get depressed, Bomi?
So I think that's probably the biggest misconception that people have, that if you're in the field of mental health, be it you're a psychologist or a counselor, then you don't struggle from any mental health issues. Your life is perfect. You have perfect relationships. You raise perfect children. And that's not true. That's actually far from being true. A lot of people in the field of mental health really struggle with their own difficulties. And interestingly enough, when you go for interviews, be it it's work interviews or you're trying to get into master's program, the first thing they ask you is in terms of, how do you take care of yourself? What do you do to make sure that you are taken care of? Because they know the work itself is something that weighs very heavily on you. The cases that you deal with, those things are things that can significantly affect you. If you're dealing with trauma, there's things called secondary trauma. So literally you get traumatized by hearing someone else's story. So those things alone, they weigh very heavily on you. And those things significantly affect your mental health. So they want to know, how will we make sure that you are also taken care of? Because we know that this work is going to affect you significantly. So, and one of the things that when you're in a master's program, it's actually compulsory for you to be in therapy so that you can actually work on certain things that you are experiencing. And if you get triggered by your patients, because sometimes you see someone that has like a similar kind of trauma as you, that thing is quite triggering, especially if it's not something you work through. So those kind of things are things that from the get-go, once you start seeing clients, they encourage you to go to therapy because they know your mental health becomes affected very significantly. And I think for me, on a personal note, yes, I am in therapy. I've been in therapy for the past 3 years. So since my master's year, I've stayed in therapy because I saw that it was beneficial. Initially, when I was told I have to get to therapy, I just thought to myself, actually, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, why should I be there? But once I was there, I could see like the impact that it was having in my life, and the positive change that it was having in my life in terms of how I do relationships, the person that I was. Like, I'm just happy overall in terms of the progress I'm making in therapy. And then in terms of my own personal experience, I think the one thing about studying clinical psychology, especially during your master's and your internship, is that you become so overwhelmed by everything that's going on. You literally don't have time for anything else aside from the work that you do. And I think for me, because I love what I do, I enjoyed working with the people that I did, that I work with, then that kind of helped in terms of cushioning kind of the pressure that's on you. But what suffered the most is my relationships with my family, with my friends. I literally didn't have time for those people. And what would happen would be that, like, at the end of the year, so at the end of my master's year, at the end of my internship here, just reflecting on the loss that I've experienced in all this time, like the moments that I've missed out on, like literally that would dawn on me so hard that I'd struggle until I went back into work. So I'd actually use the work as something to kind of distract me away from those feelings of loss, that sadness, and just that sense of loss that I felt in terms of other areas of my life. And I guess the one thing that I've actually been working on and learning to do is not to invest so much of myself in the work and have that as the one thing kind of like that I live for, but finding a balance in terms of actually building those relationships, working on those relationships, and also not having that sense of guilt for the time that's lost, but rather like building on the time that we have now and working on those kind of things. So overall, yes, we do have mental health problems, and we might have more insight into them. So when I start becoming anxious, I do know that I'm becoming anxious, and then I'll start trying to understand where the anxiety comes from so I can think about ways of dealing with it. And also we have better coping strategies. We also know that help is available out there. We know where to get help. So I think in that sense, we have an advantage. So that's why it might look like we have things together. But the reality is no, we humans, we have the same struggles that everyone else has.
Thank you for touching on that. I think that one thing that you mentioned that really helped me as a person as well is that, because I'm someone who works a lot and I kind of throw everything into work, and I kind of go through that same thing that you may have gone through when there's regrets and the time that you haven't spent with each other. And what you have to realize is look forward to the time that you have now, and then you just use that time wisely instead of pondering on the past. So I think that we touched on very great subjects. Thank you, Bomi. Thank you, Yaw, and thank you, Ms. Antoinette, for coming on the show and voicing your opinions. I would like to definitely do a lot more talks with you guys in the future. And as for now, we're signing off.